Good morning, Pack Nation. This is Coach JT with Pack Baseball and Softball Academy, and I've got the pleasure of having a special guest, Coach Andrew Weissman, who runs an academy. And I'm going to let I'm going to let him tell you all about that. But I want to let you know we've got a really special guest today, and I'm excited to hear what's going on in his part of the world because most of you are here in the States, and Coach Andrew is a long ways from here. So with that, you want to go ahead and tell us who you are and where you're coming from?
Well, I don't know where to start. I'm old, so I've been around for a while. Um, I played some ball when I was in college back in the 60s and 70s, and then I coached college ball for about 15 years at a community college in California. And in 1994, I was asked by MLB International to go as an envoy coach to Slovakia. And I went there, and a lot of things are going on in my life at the time, and I fell in love with the people in Slovakia, and I came back. And then in '95, they asked me to be there full time. And so in '95, I actually decided to try it for a year and ended up staying. And I've been in Eastern Europe for the last, on and off, mostly on, for the last 30 years, coaching baseball in in three countries primarily: Slovakia, Austria, and Ukraine. Um, I built four fields with my little tractor and shovel. I had a baseball bat company called Yaya Baseball Bats. It just went belly up this year. And now I'm living in Warsaw, and I'll be coaching in a town called Katowice. And I work with the Bats Academy, Baseball Academy Team Slovakia in Slovakia, and I coach pretty much anyone who will let me. I've got a certificate with the NPA, the National Pitching Association, with Tom House, and so I'm a certified pitching instructor.
This sounds.
What else you need to know?
Oh, there's going to be some questions for sure. So most of the time I'm interviewing college coaches, but in this case, you've got a much broader scope of experience. So I'd like to ask you some questions. And I know it was a couple of years ago, but can you go back to your time playing in college and your experience in California? How was that for you? How did
Sure.
that impact and influence your life?
Well, I played at a D2 college. It was called San Fernando Valley State College in Los Angeles. And I was a little guy. When I graduated high school, I was just over 5'2" and about 135 pounds. And so I grew a bit, and I was a center fielder, believe it or not, closer. At the time, I threw pretty good, 87, 88, which in 1967, 68 was genuine for a little bitty guy. I ran pretty well, and we were a pretty good team. The year I left, we took the Division Two national championship, um, and I got sour on baseball. I had a pretty big argument with my coach, and I was on a small, at the time, if you know much about baseball at the time, especially state schools, my scholarship was basically bread. Um, and he was putting conditions on me that I didn't want to live with, so I stopped and ended up hating baseball for about 11 years. And I totally stayed away from baseball and got my master's degree in child psychology with a sports emphasis. So what I did my graduate paper on was utilization of baseball in treating child and adolescent abnormalities and child development. And that brought me back to playing softball, and that brought me back to wanting to play baseball. So I went and started playing with a semi-pro team in San Francisco of a bunch of kids. I mean, at the time I was 34 years old, and I still ran okay. I ran a 100-yard dash in about 10:8 when I was a kid, it wasn't world class, but you know, for a baseball player, it wasn't bad. So I could run a little bit. That's how I got to play center field. But when I was playing with these kids, I'd slowed down enough. I had my summers off because I was teaching, and I went to the local community college where they had a baseball class, and I asked them if they could teach me to catch. I took the class for the summer, and at the end of the summer, they asked me to coach. And so I started coaching. So I
Wow,
started coaching in 80, 84,
nice.
83.
What an interesting story. So you went to this community college looking to find out how to catch and ended up becoming a coach?
Right.
Nice. So did you coach for that college that you went to or somewhere else?
Yeah, it was
Or how did that go
no,
down?
Laney College in Oakland, California. I coached there from 83 until 95. When 95 I was when I moved to Europe, and we were quite an experience. We were never worse than 10th in California. Coach never had a losing season. We had, if you know much about community college, we had a 98% graduation rate and a 98%, I can't think of the word now because my old brain. We found schools or guys got signed to play pro ball. In fact, we have reunions all the time. The guys are still they've grown up to, and it was an inner city school. I don't know if you know much about community college ball, but it's a second chance. It can be
Yeah.
great athletes. It can be really great athletes, but they made a mistake somewhere. They either got in trouble, they had bad grades, they couldn't afford it, they didn't get the scholarship, whatever was going on. We're the most interracial school in California. So we had some pretty interesting, very poor kids. Um, Without baseball, I am convinced half of them would not be with us today.
I love that.
So,
I love that. So you've got a degree in sports psychology with an emphasis in child psychology. Is that what you said?
right, right. Child and adolescent psychology.
Okay. And so you're still coaching baseball. What level are you coaching at again right now?
Well, how do you, what do you say about the European baseball? I've coached national teams in Slovakia and Ukraine. I coach everywhere. I've got the youngest player I have right now is 6, and the oldest player I have right now is 48. Um, so it's a wide range. The academy I work with in Slovakia is mostly from 17 to 21, and they are really these kids with a little bit more skill, they've got the talent. They've got the talent to play. I would say they've got the talent to play low level. Almost all of them could play D3 baseball. And there are some, like there's one pitcher I'm working with right now. He's up to one walk per nine, with 6 strikeouts per game, and He's gone from 76 to 87 in the past 8 months, and he can throw all day. And he's the smartest, hardest working kid I really ever worked with. He challenges me. He challenges me every time we're together. He's got a question and an opinion, and we have to work it out. And he's such an open kid that when I'm right, he accepts it, and when I'm wrong, I accept it because he's a smart kid. And he taught me something just the other day about the back foot, in terms of how he was coming off the rubber. So it's a mixed group of kids, a mixed group of. I would say right now I'm going to a new club in Katowice, Poland, which is in southeastern Poland, and they are pretty pathetic, but they have some decent young players. But again, in Europe, even today, almost all the coaches have either been to clinics by major league or Japanese coaches, but almost all the clinics start as if you know nothing, and they teach you basics, and they don't teach you why things work. They say do this drill, swing like this, throw like this, and then the guys go to the internet and they watch the videos, and they they'll pick up something they like, and they'll start using it and believe in it, but they can't tell you why, and they can't tell their players why. They can't say, yeah, if you swing like this, or if you throw like this, or run like this, physics say blah blah blah. They can't do it, and they're very closed. I find very, especially in Eastern Europe, very very close to having new ideas, anything that they don't already agree with. They don't want anybody else to be teaching them at this point. So it's a little bit difficult.
That's pretty cool. And there's some interesting things you said in there, coach. And it's interesting that you see that is a challenge over there for those coaches to accept that, because the higher level you get in the States, even the less you tune those things out, or the more open you are, and people think that it's the opposite. But what happens is, as you're going through the levels, you get really confident and you get that good job, and you're really confident and you're having success and you're having success, then it sort of plateaus, and then you're like, okay, what am I doing differently? At that point you're like, well, I'm not learning anymore. I know everything.
Right.
Then you start learning again, and then you progress to the next level. And it's those guys that are in between that are the ones that are fighting it, right? And I
Well,
think,
I agree with you. I found that okay, I only worked at two community colleges. The one I worked at the longest, the guy was a real red ass, but he was a really great coach. But he had almost all old technique, and he didn't really have the interest in learning new stuff. So and he was very good with his assistants. We had team meetings. He discussed stuff. He took on information, and then he gave us our area to work in. He gave us authority, and he learned, and we learned. And I mean, I went from really a nothing coach. I mean, lucky enough to have this job. First, I was an outfield coach for a couple of years and first base, and then I moved to hitting and catching, and then pitching, and hitting and catching, and from first base to third base, and it got pretty, I learned so much from this guy, and he was, I really believe Tom learned from me too, even though he's a Hall of Fame, California Community College Hall of Fame coach. And I mean, we're always, the years I was there, for 4 years, we took league in a row, 4 years in a row. We were never not in the state playoffs, not one time. The farthest we got was second twice. Um, but second is pretty good out of 100 and something colleges. I'll take it.
in California,
I
yeah.
Yes, I would take first better, but yeah, second is not bad baseball. So
I love that. And I love how you talked about your current player that you're coaching right now is continuing to teach you.
yeah,
Talk
well,
a little bit more about that.
okay, okay. So a year and a half ago, I was teaching sort of a catapult style of throwing. I was letting the front elbow get too far out, um, and not working well enough with the chain. And I mean, a lot of stuff I think I did was okay in terms of balance, but he pointed out to me that wasn't so good. And I went to the clinic with the NPA. I looked around at the various places that were teaching, and I decided that the NPA was was the place I wanted to go, not necessarily because I agreed with their technique, but I agreed with their philosophy, which was health, control, and longevity. Throw hard, easy. Um, and and I'd studied some Tom House before, and I really liked his method. I think whether he's right or wrong, people can argue whether he's this or that. He's got a really excellent teaching method. His ego is not in it. He teaches by asking questions. He decides something is right or wrong by results, not by how you look or if you're doing what he wants. And he changes. Some people hate him because he changes. Well, I think changing when you're wrong, being able to change is a great thing. When I was coaching my son, he told me, "Dad, you're a terrible coach." And I asked him why. He said, "Well, last week we were doing this, and this week we're doing that. What's wrong with you? Do you not know what you're doing?" I said, "Well, Sean, I learned something new this week, and I realized I was teaching you something wrong." And and I think that's why I went to Tom. Now he's controversial because we do things that other people don't do, and and he's outside the club. I think he's not your normal coach, and so he's resented. More and more people are starting to understand what he's teaching is really good stuff. I've taken it. I've added a few things. It was hard to take some of the stuff he does. I don't know if you follow him or not, but we don't pause. When your lift foot comes up, you start going forward. We don't use wind up. We only come out of the set because we find that you can actually get more momentum coming out of the set, and the wind up, it gives you a certain when I was pitching, we had, at best I would be a Seaver kind of guy, maybe, bend, dropping and load. It's like big wind ups, hands over the head, all kinds of stuff going on. And now we're into much smaller movements. And the basic philosophy is to get going, use your momentum downhill to create force. Force turns into velocity, and it also takes the stress off of the body and lets you throw, lets the body throw the ball. Um, I've got a new term, actually. We don't throw, we whip. Um, when I was, so many people, you can see me, right? They teach kids to warm up by holding the elbow and catapulting the arm and throwing with the hand. And what I've come to believe is the hand is the guide. It's not what throws. The shoulder and the arm throw the ball, and the hand guides it and spins it. But it is, you don't throw the ball, you whip the ball. And so I want to get rid of throw. I don't tell anybody they're throwing. I'm saying you're whipping. Um, so so I learned that with Tom, and through Max, I've really learned that I had my elbow in the wrong place, and it really prevented the shoulder from rolling. By getting the elbow out where I got, the shoulder couldn't roll. You had to push, and the elbow has to stay away from the body so that the arm can rotate. And if it wasn't for Max, I probably would have never learned that. So
That's really cool, and it's always fun and interesting to me. And you talk about these coaches not understanding the why, and I think the biggest part of not understanding the why of something works is how do you translate your belief in it to somebody that you're trying to coach, right? Because if I don't understand it, maybe I believe in it, but maybe not. Maybe if somebody questioned me, I would stop believing in it, right? Because I don't
right.
understand why it works. And I have found that if I can explain that at least in the fewest amount of words I possibly can, it can really help increase the belief level of that athlete quicker. Is that what
Well,
you found, or what
I
are your
yeah,
thoughts?
what I find, I agree with you a whole lot. Well, you can see I'm a wordy person, which is certainly not my strength, being concise. Um, I combine it. I've done a lot of studies into the physics and the biomechanics of baseball. I have a friend, Dr. Alan Nathan. He's one of the people who's responsible for BB Core. He's a retired professor at University of Illinois. He works with Saber, and Alan has steered me to some really good studies on the physics and then biomechanics. So what I try to teach them is, um, so I say weird words to them like vectors. The hitters, I'll say the vector of your contact. And they'll look at me like, "Are you crazy? What's it?" Well, you got to understand, kids in Eastern Europe, they understand vectors. They get it in the fourth grade. So if you tell them a vector, they immediately understand what you're talking about. They understand uh, they understand direction and power, and they go, and then you can talk to them. If they got a swing, like, I don't know where you are on this, on rotational versus linear. I'm a hybrid kind of guy. I've got my own little swing I teach, and I try to tell them if the force is going at a right angle to the ball and with the intent of going through the ball, you're going to get the most the most transfer of energy, the most efficient transfer of energy. And if you're doing a purely rotational swing, you're actually the angle of the contact is indirect. It's not a complete angle. And of course, you're not using the hands, and the hands are faster than the torso, but they're weaker. So you've got to use the torso to get the weight off the hands, so the hands can spin fast. But so many guys teach these days with this purely rotational stuff. I've got all these videos, even major leaguers, they're swinging without using their hands. They're just rotating into the ball, and they're big, powerful, fast guys. So these are monsters. I keep trying to tell kids over here, don't watch pro baseball. These guys are a different level of human being. You are not ever going to be Otani. You're not ever going to be Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge can do something, he's 6'6" and 250 plus pounds, and he's not only that, but he's got muscle movement like you'll never believe, and eyesight like you just cannot imagine, and you will not be Aaron Judge. Here in Europe, if you hit a hard line drive, we have a good chance of getting a base runner. All we have to do is be putting the ball in play, hitting the ball up in the air for home runs. Look, even Aaron Judge only did it 50 something times out of 600 at bats. That's not a very good batting average.
Right. I love it, Coach. I love it. And in the science and the numbers and the results, they tell you how it's working, right? If you pay attention, what's happening is what tells you the results. And when I come in, and sometimes when I'm speaking to a group of coaches, they'll tell me, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. And I said, okay, and what's your overall record? Well, this and this. And recently, how's that working for you? They'll say, well, it seems like it's not working, because let's be honest, the guys who are at those coaching seminars are not doing really well right now. That's why they're there. They want some feedback. Right. They want to figure out what's going on. So, well, for the last 3 years, we've had losing seasons, and I want to turn this around before I lose my job. And I say, okay, is it possible that what you're doing never worked, and it was something else that worked, that maybe you were a super recruiter, or you had a super recruiter on your team, or you were building on the history of your school, and now what you've been implying this whole time is actually the results have come to fruition. You planted those seeds and it took a while, and now you're just reaping that harvest. And they get a little, they push you back, and then if you go through this process of questioning, what you find out is the results are telling you that the seeds you planted didn't work. And what
right. Something's amiss.
Yeah, is just adjust. Yeah. And adjust, and almost always just that one questioning process will open something in that coach's mind that now gets them looking at the results, analyzing that, and seeing where it's afoot, and they'll start to win again. They'll start to have success. And what are your thoughts on that, Coach?
Well, here's my thoughts on that. If you are a coach and you remember that you are the servant of the player, they are not the player. The player is not your servant. Yes, if you're looking for tenure and you're trying to hold on to a job, I understand that pressure. But all along, you're there for them. Your day in the sun is over. You're the coach. They're the players. That's the first thing to remember. I think the second thing that you must do is, what I don't know, I should learn. If you ask me a question I can't answer you, well, there's the internet. You can go on the internet and in 5 minutes ask 10 different sources and answer to that question and make your decision. The third thing is, you need to develop some kind of objective method of showing the players that the results happen by doing something. For instance, in arguing with these rotational guys, I've come up with this system. You set up 3 tees: outside, inside, center, and outside. 3 balls. The batter gets ready, and as the batter becomes loaded, you say which ball to hit. So you're not saying ahead of time so they can pick their body and change their swing. You're doing it as the brain actually works, which is on automatic. So the swing that has the best exit speed and direction is a swing we'll use. The swing that doesn't hit all 3 balls with intent and confidence is not a swing we want to use. And I can argue with you all day whether the rotational swing works for a low outside slider. And you'll say, yeah, well, if my guy sees it, he adjusts. And well, okay, I'll argue with you. Does the brain see it? How do you make the adjustment? We'll argue all day. And that's subjective. But if I find an objective way to show you something, like I was taught by Ricky Henderson, this really interesting method of taking your first step. He didn't turn his foot. He rolled over his front foot. He used to call it take the money and run. And he would grab his arm around and throw his arm forward, so that as he rolled over his front foot, his back foot took a big cross step, and he was he was 6 feet before he had two steps. And that's one of the reasons Ricky Henderson was stealing so many bases. Well, so many of us, our automatic reaction is to spin the front foot or to drop it back. And that's a waste of a half of a second. A half of a second is an awful lot when you're stealing a base. It's being out by a long ways.
Yes.
And so when I can't run anymore, but when I could run and I could show these guys that I would get closer to second base off of my move than they would get off of theirs, and they were young athletes, they had to say, maybe coach is onto something. So if you have concrete, first you have to remember why you're there. You're a coach. You're no longer a player. The second thing is, if you don't know it, coach, learn it. And the third thing is, don't convince them with your emotions or your ideas. Convince them with objective reality. Um, and the fourth thing is, respect your players. Teach them. Don't train them. Too many of us coaches were trainers. You swing like this because I tell you to. No, that's not how. That's not what you want to be telling your players. You want to teach your players. This swing works because I think this swing works. We'll try it for 2 months. We'll try it for 2 weeks. If you're not getting results, we'll do something else. Um, Giving the players a chance to think and make decisions on their own and to see concrete reality-based results, and treating them with respect. The coach I coached with for all those years was the most, I'll tell you, red ass, he was the definition of red ass. I've never seen such an abusive person in my life. But the players believed in him because two things. One, he had great results, and two, he got them someplace. Our kids went to Stanford, to Cal, to Fullerton State. They went to the pros. They went someplace. And you take it off. I still think Coach could have done it a different way, because I can tell you stories that are incredibly horrendous. I mean, he was the most abusive little guy I've ever worked with. Um, but he was a great coach in other ways. Luckily, our guys were strong enough that they could handle his abuse. They didn't take it personal. They would say things to me like, "Yeah, that's coach. We know who he is. We don't take it personally. He can't control himself." Um, but he's taught me this, he's taught me that, and he got my brother there, and he got my cousin there, and now he's playing pro ball or whatever. So, so if you get results and if the players know you're sincere, you can get away with that stuff. But the truth is, with young players, especially these days, you've really got to work with them in a more complete way. You've got to respect them. You've got to teach them. You've got to give them a voice in what they're doing. And yeah, occasionally you can look, it's an emotion. Being a coach is one of the most emotional things I've ever done, because I can't do anything. You don't get that bunt down. Darn, I couldn't. Why can't we get that bunt down? The umpire has 10,000 bad calls. I can't do anything about it. And I can just sit there. And I mean, when I was a player, I could run hard to the outfield between innings, get some of my energy out. And also, I knew the coach would do the fighting. So I was like, okay, the coach is there to fight. But being a little red ass and fighting is okay. But the most important thing is never abuse the players. Always show them respect. And if you abuse them, if you lose it, you really have to have the responsibility to apologize. Um, to admit, a coach admitting he was wrong about anything and apologizing when he makes a mistake tells the players that this finger, the pointer, points in, that everybody makes mistakes, and that we have to own up and that we learn from our mistakes. So yeah, how do I feel about that? I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Oh, that was perfect. I love it. And notice that a couple of things you said in there. One of those things I'll point out, very early in my career, I wrote a book called Coaching the Home Team, which was about using the coaching methods and philosophy that I have on the field in parenting my three girls. And what happened was, a lot of it was about that, right? I grew up in a household where my parents were constantly, because I said so. When you ask, why would I do that? Because I said so.
Right.
right? And that doesn't help me as the person who's getting the instruction, and it doesn't help you as the person who's giving the instruction, because honestly, you may not know why you're asking them to do that.
I think more often than not, coaches don't know. We learned from somebody before. It worked for us. I played. Okay, I played into almost to 70 years old. The last game I caught, I was doubleheader. I caught, I was 69. Um, my body has a pretty good sense of how it works, and luckily I've learned that. But many coaches, even those who played, don't know how to learn. They don't know why whatever worked for them worked, and they don't know why it's working for you, and they don't even know why they learned it. They may have learned it from somebody else, and he said, "This is how you swing." I mean, that's how I swung when I first started coaching college. I had a big stride and uh, and a big long swing, and it worked for. In college, I was a good hitter. I mean, we hit with wooden bats. I was still a good hitter. I got away with it. I guess I had the talent at the time, but it wasn't. I didn't know why it was working. I couldn't tell you my swing worked because this or that. I got on plane. I had blah blah blah. My hands are here. My feet were there. My hips are there. The kinetic change. I couldn't tell you. All I could tell you was I hit almost 400 in college. So you know uh, it worked, but. So a lot of us coaches, we stop learning. I don't know exactly why. I think I haven't been around the American game in a while to know if the coaching has changed, if the coaches are more open and educators now than they were handlers of youth athletes. I do see a lot of stuff that in youth leagues, and I don't know where you are on this, but I'm really critical of all this pay to train stuff, all these academies, all this travel ball, all this money, and all these guys who promise hit like a pro. No, you're not a pro. Hit as good as you can to get to whatever level you can get to. Get you one level at a time. If you're a kid, get you get you confident, satisfied, and performing at a level you're happy playing baseball. As you get into high school, maybe get good enough to get to college. But guys, 7% of you get there. I don't know how to tell you this, but 93% of you, you're done. Even though you're in high school, you're never going to play organized sports again, at least not at a high level. So when these guys promise you're going to throw 100, or you're going to hit home runs like Aaron Judge, or play shortstop like I don't know, like Bobby Witt. No, it ain't gonna happen, guys. You're gonna play like John Jones, and John Jones is gonna play as good as he can, and I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna try and find the best John Jones can do, and we're gonna be happy with that. And if John Jones does a lot better than we ever thought, we're gonna celebrate it. It's gonna be a great day. Um, I just am so upset with these promises to take every kid and take all this money and make them into super athletes. Not just super athletes, but super performers. Um, I just, it drives me crazy. It really does. I mean, on Facebook, I say some of the meanest, not nasty, but very mean comments and questions like, you know, because I just get tired of these guys promising hit like a pro, the right way to hit. No, no, come on, give me a break. Yeah. So I understand needing to make a living. I understand guys who don't have anything else to do after baseball, but try and open an academy or live on their past because they haven't really learned another skill, and suddenly they're out of work and they need to eat. But you can be honest. Come to me and I'll help you enjoy Little League. Come to me and we'll get the best out of you that you can, and maybe you're good enough to play middle school ball. Come to me and maybe you can go from middle school to high school, and I'll do my best. Um, but come to me and hit like Aaron Judge. No, I'm sorry. Aaron Judge is one of them. There's less than 100 guys who stand out like Aaron Judge in all these years of baseball. You're going to promise somebody to be Aaron Judge or Ohtani? Ohtani is not human. Ohtani is not a human being. I think if he dies, they're going to take him apart and they're going to find alien in there. The guy is just unusual, you know. And to say, well, here's how Ohtani swings. No, Ohtani, has anybody watched him? His hands are the quickest hands. He's got the most powerful wrists and hips I've ever seen in baseball. I mean, the guy does not generate a lot of momentum. He's got a swing that's not generating a lot of momentum until he swings. Well, I'm sorry, you and I can't do that. We can't. I don't have his hands. I never had his hands. The guy's amazing. Yeah, watch him, enjoy him, love what he does. But be him, give me a break. There's one Otani, and everybody knows there's one Otani. There's one Aaron Judge, and and all that stuff just drives me crazy, Coach. And it just just drives me crazy.
I know it's clear. It's very clear. I love how passionate you are. That's awesome. And what I would say, you've given a lot of great information, and I appreciate you for these young coaches, these new coaches. Make it about the player, not about you. Make it about development, not about a specific goal that you decide for them, but what is it that this particular player needs to get out of this, right? Some of those things. We're going to wrap this up here because we're out of time, but I want to ask you this question. If you could leave one piece of advice for this community and these young coaches, these are high school coaches and travel ball coaches and college coaches that listen to this, what's that one thing that you would say, make sure you do this?
Make sure you understand the player you're coaching, what they dream of, what they're try to understand what they're capable of, and see if you can get them to be a little bit more than either of you thought. Be on their side, work with them, understand your players. Put that I can't say anything more than that. Understand your players. Yeah, and everything else in baseball. I mean, if you could, there's millions of things I could tell you about. I have 15 points that as a psychologist, that I think the game of baseball teaches to make a player a healthy adult. 15 points. And I could say all those 15 points to you, but the core of it all is build the player's self-confidence, self-image, and ability to look in the mirror and be honest with themselves. Build those three things in your player, and you've done your job, coach. And I'll guarantee you, coach, if you do that with 9 guys on the field and they run on and they run off and they're picking each other up and nobody's blaming anybody else, you're going to have a team that competes. Maybe they don't have the talent to win, but they'll compete for you. They'll compete for you 9 innings and they'll compete for themselves.
I love it. I think that's a great way to end it, Coach. So we've been on today with Coach Andrew Weissman, and he's been absolutely fantastic. Over 30 years experience of coaching in a completely different environment than most of us. But what it comes down to is what he just said. So if you're a young coach out there listening to this podcast, please, please, please listen to what Coach said today, because this was absolutely fantastic. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we say goodbye?
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for having me. Enjoy it, coaches. Enjoy it. It'll keep you young. I'm 78, steel knee, steel hip, torn tendons in my shoulder, bad back, but I still am able to coach.
And loving
And
life, clearly.
it's keeping me alive. It's keeping me going. So those young players, even older players, their energy, it goes right into you and keeps you right there. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks a lot, Coach. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks for being on. And we may have you on another time if you ever want to come back. But I absolutely enjoyed this.
I said, well, if there's anything left for me to say, I enjoy this. This is great. I've talked so much. I think I've given you my life story in 10 books. So, what the heck?
I love it. Dropping knowledge on the community. Thanks, Coach. You have a great night.
You too. Take care.
All right. Bye.